Hi, folks. This is Richard Ricky Garcia, and as part of our effort for the Skywriters Making a Difference campaign, I thought it'd be fun to reminisce, record, and share stories from our drum corps days. I'm joined by Brent Bradley, who marched Skywriters from 1980 through 1982. I brought Brent in because he was part of what I called my personal Skywriters hive mind. When I wrote the 1982 virtual tour, I was able to recall a lot of information, uh, more than most, but I knew I wasn't the only one. And as a result, I knew that the more stories I wrote, more memories would come up. And two people kind of rose. They were the cream that rose to the top. Uh, Kevin Hopkins and Brent Bradley, who we're speaking with here, were able to recall a lot of things that I had forgotten, or if I had a partial memory, they were able to complete that, and it was actually beautiful to watch, because they made connections, and so I'm curious. Here's a good example. Um, I wrote an article or post about drum corps crushes, and I mentioned Sharon Koval Hunter. And on the comments, Brent mentioned something about her being from Alamogordo, Mexico, and that his uncle was a judge in that county where she's from, and she knew him. How did all that work? Because I believe it's these types of connections that allowed you to recall so many things.
That particular story is we were going around at the beginning of the season saying who we were, where we were from, and which gives you a neat sense of where everybody was from and how this conglomeration of kids come together from all these different parts of the country and end up being one. And when this tall, pretty blonde girl says that she's from Alamogordo, New Mexico, and my family has come out of Otero County since the 1880s.
Hmm.
Um, I see a chance to talk to the tall, pretty blonde girl. And so I go up to her and I said, "You're from Alamogordo?" And she says, "Yes." And I said, "My uncle is a judge there." And she goes, "Oh, which one is it? Is it Zimmerman or is it Bradley?" No lie, Rich. I almost lied to her and said Zimmerman. That tone of voice, but I knew
Says it
she'd
all.
find out my name. So I said, "Well, it's Bradley." And without changing expression on her face, she says, "He took my boyfriend's license away," which was something he did to a lot of teenagers. He'd take their
Um,
license for 30 days if they brought a ticket to court. And he later explained that he did that not because of any animosity towards teenagers or the military guys down there. It was he wanted them to learn a lesson. He didn't want them to become a statistic because it's
yeah.
easy to go very fast on the highways around Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Hmm.
And so, connections like that, it 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 almost becomes like a living organism, and the connection happens, and then the connections grow and it spreads out. And I think that's why institutional memory is such a great thing, and it grows when you add more and more to that organism. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
Love it. I absolutely love the way you put that. It becomes this organism. The other example that I gave is Kevin Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I tend to think the reason Kevin Hopkins can recall so many things is because he's a writer. He's been writing about these things for a very long time,
Yeah.
and I have too. I would always I'd write like a brief story about something that I recalled from drum corps, and I think it reinforces that knowledge, and when anytime you reinforce knowledge, it's going to stay with you a little bit more. So it's clear to me through all your connections. The other connections were the people of our generation. We were roughly the same age, and there was this unspoken connection between all of us. Chris Harmon, um, Dave Jewett, uh, Allison Tucker, the list goes on. People that were roughly our age. We weren't anywhere near 21, um,
No.
but and so we had something in common, and we could relate to each other because we were all going through the same things at that age, and so your connections were actually quite plentiful, and I think that's how you were able to recall so many things because it was remarkable. Just that, like, oh, I forgot about this. What do you know? Hey, Brent, what do you know about this? Boom, you were there with information. Same thing with Kevin. Hey, do you remember? I have just a few memories about this, Kevin Hopkins. What do you know? Boom, he came in with information. That didn't happen with everybody. For the most people, it was like, I don't remember. It's really sketchy. Like, oh, okay, which is fine. But the two of you were different. I mean, you just bursting with knowledge.
And I can't explain it because I half the time I can't remember yesterday. But maybe it has something to do with how important that time is in our lives. And I still look back and still say one of my biggest regrets is leaving drum corps at 16. And what could I have been had I stayed to the age out year?
I like that. How
But
much how much emphasis, how much priority did we put on that experience? I put a lot of priority, which is one of the reasons I remember a lot.
yeah. And you know what's funny is even now, I I now manage three cemeteries, and one of them is in Hutchinson. And I'll sit with somebody and they'll go, "You sound familiar to me. You look familiar. You sound familiar." And it'll be from my radio days.
Oh, interesting.
And they'll say, "Well, yeah, I did grow up here, blah, blah, blah." And then I'll mention I was in Skywriters. They forget the radio thing. And they go, "You were in Skywriters? Man, I wanted to do that."
So cool.
And it kind of tempers my regret for not getting out because I talk to a lot of people who regret never getting in.
Yeah,
And they have no idea what they missed out on.
absolutely. Absolutely. Very well put, Brett. Very well put. Thanks.
You're welcome.